On Sunday, November 12th, 2023, at exactly 6:47 p.m., my son-in-law Derek Thompson raised his hand and slapped my daughter Naomi across the face at my dinner table. His mother, Patricia Thompson, sitting 3 feet away, clapped her hands together and said, "Finally, someone needed to put her in her place." I'm Vivian Walters. I'm 65 years old. I've been a widow for 20 years, a registered nurse for 42 years, and a survivor of domestic violence for even longer than that. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't move from my chair. I pulled out my cell phone, dialed 911, and said 7 words that would change everything. My daughter has just been assaulted. Then I looked at everyone at that table, all 14 people who had witnessed what just happened, and I said something I never thought I'd have the strength to say. Nobody leaves this house. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please stay with me until the end. This is the story of how one phone call dismantled a 7-year nightmare, exposed a criminal conspiracy, and saved my daughter's life. Let me take you back to that Sunday afternoon. I had been preparing for this dinner since Thursday. It was our family tradition. Every second Sunday of the month, everyone gathered at my apartment at 847 Riverside Drive, apartment 4C, for what I called Sunday supper. I'd been doing this for 20 years, ever since my husband David passed away from complications of diabetes in 2003. That November afternoon, I'd spent 6 hours cooking. Jollof rice, the recipe my mother brought from Liberia in 1968. Fried plantains, perfectly golden. Collard greens with smoked turkey. Cornbread from my cast-iron skillet. Peach cobbler cooling on the counter. The apartment smelled like love. That's what my daughter Naomi used to say when she was small. "Mama, your kitchen smells like love." By 5:30 p.m., people started arriving. My sister Lorraine came first, bringing her famous mac and cheese. Then my nephew Thomas with his wife Jennifer and their 3 kids. Reverend Grace Thompson from New Hope Baptist, no relation to Derek's family, just an unfortunate coincidence of names, came with her husband Robert. Naomi was supposed to arrive at 6 p.m. She came at 6:43 p.m. I was setting out the sweet tea when I heard the key turn in my lock. I'd given her that key when she moved into her first apartment at age 22. She'd kept it for 16 years. When she walked in, I knew something was wrong immediately. Naomi was wearing a turtleneck. In November, that wouldn't seem unusual to most people. But this was Atlanta, Georgia. It was 72 degrees outside, and my daughter hadn't worn turtlenecks since high school. Her makeup was heavier than usual. Foundation applied thick around her left cheekbone. Concealer under both eyes. "Hey, Mama," she said, her voice too bright, too forced. Behind her came Derek Thompson, 6 feet 2 inches tall, 215 pounds, wearing a Ralph Lauren polo shirt and an expression I'd seen too many times before on too many men, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. And behind him, Patricia Thompson, Derek's mother, 64 years old, former middle school teacher, dressed in a St. John knit suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Vivian," Patricia said, not hello or good evening, just my name, flat and cold, like she was identifying me in a lineup. My grandson Elijah came in last. 7 years old, wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt, holding his Nintendo Switch with both hands, eyes down. He didn't run to hug me like he usually did. He didn't say hi, Grandma, in that loud, joyful way that always made my heart sing. He just walked past me to the couch and sat down, still looking at his game. That's when I knew. In my bones, in my gut, in that place where mothers know things they don't want to know, I knew my daughter was in trouble. Dinner started at 6:50 p.m. 14 people crowded around my dining table and the card table I'd set up in the living room. I'd made place cards, something I'd started doing after David died, to make things feel special, formal, like we were honoring the tradition. I'd put Naomi between me and her son Elijah. Derek was across the table. Patricia was next to him. We blessed the food. Reverend Grace said a beautiful prayer about family and gratitude and protection. I remember that word now, protection, like God was trying to tell me something. For the first 20 minutes, everything seemed normal. People ate, complimented the food, talked about their weeks. My nephew Thomas told a funny story about his boss. Lorraine complained about the potholes on Peachtree Street. Then Patricia Thompson spoke. "Naomi," she said, her voice cutting through the conversation like a knife through silk. This rice is very salty. Didn't Vivian teach you proper seasoning? The table went quiet. I hadn't made the rice. Naomi knew I'd made the rice. Everyone at that table knew I'd made the rice. It was my signature dish, the one thing I made the same way every single time. I didn't, Naomi started. It's fine, Patricia, I interrupted gently. I made the rice. If it's too salty for you, I can get you something else. Patricia smiled. It didn't reach her eyes either. Oh, I'm sure Naomi helped. She needs to practice for when she's cooking for her own family. She is cooking for her own family, I said quietly. She has been for 7 years. Derek's fork hit his plate with a sharp clink. Actually, he said, and I didn't like his tone, not one bit. We need to talk about that. Naomi's hand found mine under the table. Her palm was sweating. Derek, she whispered, not now. Yes, now. He put down his napkin, precisely, deliberately, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Naomi's been talking about going back to work full-time, at the pharmacy. My sister Lorraine looked up. That's wonderful. Naomi, you were always so good at— It's not wonderful, Patricia interrupted. It's selfish. The word hung in the air like smoke. Excuse me? I said, my voice very, very calm. She has a 7-year-old son, Patricia continued, looking at me directly now. Her responsibility is in her home, with her child, supporting her husband, not playing pharmacist while her family falls apart. I have a PharmD degree, Naomi said quietly. Her voice was shaking, but she was speaking. I worked hard for that degree, and Mom offered to help with Elijah after school. Derek stood up. I will never forget the sound of his chair scraping against my hardwood floor. It was 7:12 p.m. I know because I looked at the clock on my microwave afterward, trying to anchor myself to something real, something normal. You want to go back to work? Derek said. He wasn't yelling. That's what made it terrifying. His voice was perfectly level. Fine. Let's talk about what you're really saying. You're saying Elijah isn't important enough. You're saying I'm not important enough. You're saying you'd rather count pills for strangers than take care of your own family. That's not what I— Don't interrupt me when I'm talking to you. Every person at that table froze. 14 people, 14 witnesses, and not one of us moved. Derek, Naomi whispered. Her voice was so small, like a child's, like she was trying to make herself disappear. Please, can we talk about this at home? No, we're talking about it now, because apparently your mother thinks she can run your life, thinks she can make decisions for my family. I didn't make any, I started. You offered to babysit. Derek turned to me. You offered to enable my wife to abandon her responsibilities. You think because you raised Naomi alone after David died, you know what's best for everyone, but you don't. You're a lonely old woman who needs to learn to mind her own business. My sister Lorraine gasped. Reverend Grace started to stand. Naomi stood up first. Don't talk to my mother like that, she said. Her voice was still shaking, but there was steel underneath it. The steel I remembered from when she was 16, when she told her high school principal that the dress code was sexist, when she stood up to the college advisor who said pharmacy school was too hard for girls like her. I saw that steel, and for just a moment, I had hope. Derek saw it too, and that's when he hit her, his right hand, open palm, across her left cheek. The sound was like a gunshot in that small room. Naomi's head snapped to the side. She stumbled backward, hit the edge of the table, caught herself with both hands. For 3 seconds, I counted them later, lying awake at 3 a.m., playing it over and over. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Patricia Thompson started clapping. Slow, deliberate. 3 claps like she was applauding a performance. Good, she said. She was smiling. Finally, someone needed to put her in her place. That girl has been getting too big for her britches for years. Talking back, making demands, forgetting who puts a roof over her head and food on her table. I looked at my daughter. There was a red mark spreading across her cheek in the exact shape of Derek Thompson's hand. Her eyes were wide, shocked, like she couldn't quite believe what had just happened, even though, I realized with horror, this had happened before. I could see it in the way she immediately covered her face with her hand, in the way she hunched her shoulders, in the way she stepped back from the table automatically, creating distance, protecting herself. This had happened before, and I, Her mother, the woman who'd promised to protect her from the day she was born. I had missed it. I stood up. My hands weren't shaking. Later, I would be grateful for that. 40 years of nursing had taught me to be calm in emergencies, to act when others freeze, to make decisions when seconds matter. I picked up my cell phone from the counter where I'd left it, next to the peach cobbler that nobody would eat. I unlocked it, opened the phone app, dialed 911. "What are you doing?" Derek said. He was still standing over my daughter, still in that position of power, of control. The operator answered. 911, what's your emergency? My daughter has just been assaulted, I said. My voice was clear, steady, in my home. At 847 Riverside Drive, apartment 4C. The perpetrator is still here. I need police immediately. Ma'am, can you tell me? Domestic violence, 14 witnesses. Please send someone now. Units are on the way, ma'am. Stay on the line with me. Are you in immediate danger? Not me, my daughter. But I'm not letting the perpetrator leave. Derek took a step toward me. You crazy bitch. Hang up that phone right now. I didn't hang up. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw what I should have seen months ago, years ago. I saw a man who believed he owned my daughter, who thought he had the right to hit her because she disagreed with him, because she defended me, because she dared to want something for herself. I saw my daughter's abuser, and I saw my own face, 40 years younger, in the mirror of a hospital bathroom in 1983, after my first husband, Naomi's father, had put me through a wall because I'd asked him to help with the groceries. Nobody leaves this house, I said. I wasn't talking to Derek. I was talking to everyone at that table. To my sister Lorraine, who was crying silently. To Reverend Grace, who had her phone out, calling someone. To my nephew Thomas, who was standing now, putting himself between Derek and me. To Patricia Thompson, who had stopped smiling. And to Naomi, who was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Fear? Hope? Relief? All three, I think now. You're going to regret this, Derek said. His voice was different now, lower, dangerous. You have no idea what you just did, old woman. No idea what you've started. Yes, I said quietly. I do. The operator was still on the line. Ma'am, officers are 3 minutes away. Can you stay on the line? Yes. Is the perpetrator still there? Yes. He's standing approximately 8 feet from me, 6 feet 2 inches tall, 215 pounds, wearing a light blue polo shirt and khaki pants. His name is Derek Michael Thompson, date of birth April 3rd, 1982. Derek's eyes widened. He hadn't expected me to know his middle name, his birth date. But I knew everything. I'd known since the day he'd asked my daughter to marry him, since I'd smiled and said congratulations, and then spent the next week doing what I'd learned to do in my 42 years as a nurse. Research, background checks, public records, credit reports. I'd found the 2005 arrest for domestic violence in Athens, Georgia. Charges dropped when his girlfriend, her name was Amanda Peterson, left the state. I'd found the restraining order from 2008. A woman named Keisha Williams, also dropped when she moved to Florida. I'd found the pattern, and I'd said nothing, because Naomi was so happy, because I'd thought maybe he'd changed. Maybe those women were lying. Maybe I was being paranoid, seeing ghosts of my own past in my daughter's future. I'd convinced myself. I'd chosen to believe the best instead of trusting my gut. Not anymore. Ma'am, officers are at your building. Can you buzz them in? My nephew will meet them at the door. Thomas moved immediately, heading for the hallway. Derek made a move like he was going to follow, to run. Reverend Grace's husband, Robert, stepped in front of him. Robert was 71 years old and walked with a cane, but he was a Korean War veteran, and the look on his face said clearly, "Try it. Just try it." Derek didn't try it. We stood there in my small apartment, the apartment where I'd raised my daughter alone, where I'd read her bedtime stories and helped her with algebra homework and taught her to make jollof rice, where I'd promised her that she would never, ever have to be afraid of a man because I would always, always protect her. And we waited. It took 2 minutes and 47 seconds for the police to reach my door. I know because I was still counting. Counting my daughter's breaths, quick and shallow. Counting my own heartbeats, too fast but steady. Counting the seconds until my daughter would be safe. Counting, because if I stopped counting, I would start screaming. The knock came at 7:18 p.m. Atlanta Police Department. Thomas opened the door. 2 officers entered. A man and a woman. The woman was in her late 50s, black, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. Sharp eyes that took in the whole scene in seconds. The dinner table still set with half-eaten food. The 14 people frozen in various states of shock. Derek standing rigid in the middle of the room, Naomi against the wall with her hand still covering her cheek. The woman officer's eyes stopped on Naomi's face, then moved to Derek, then to me. Something passed across her expression. Recognition? No, it was something else. Something deeper. "I'm Detective Sarah Mitchell," she said. "We got a call about a domestic assault." Her voice was professional, calm, but her eyes were angry. She looked at Naomi. "Ma'am, did someone hit you?" Naomi didn't answer. She was looking at Derek. He was looking back at her, and I could see the threat in his eyes, the silent message, "Don't you dare." "My name is Vivian Walters," I said. "This is my daughter, Naomi Walters Thompson. That man is her husband, Derek Thompson. Approximately 6 minutes ago, he struck her across the face with his open hand, in front of 14 witnesses, including his mother, Patricia Thompson, who applauded." Detective Mitchell's head turned sharply toward Patricia. "You applauded?" she said. Her voice was very, very quiet. Patricia lifted her chin. "This is a private family matter. You have no right to be here. My son was simply disciplining his wife after she disrespected him and his mother. This woman," she pointed at me, "has interfered where she doesn't belong." The silence that followed was absolute. Then Detective Mitchell spoke. "Ma'am, put your hands behind your back." Patricia's mouth fell open. "What?" "You just admitted to witnessing an assault and approving of it. In some states, that makes you an accessory. I'm detaining you for questioning." She looked at her partner. "Officer Williams, please secure Mrs. Thompson while I speak to the victim." Patricia started to protest, but Officer Williams, a young man who looked barely 30, was already moving toward her with handcuffs. "This is outrageous," Patricia shrieked. "My son did nothing wrong. That ungrateful girl has been—" "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent," Officer Williams said. "I suggest you use it." Detective Mitchell approached Naomi carefully, like she was approaching a wounded animal. "Naomi," she said gently, "my name is Sarah. I need you to tell me what happened. In your own words. Can you do that?" Naomi's eyes filled with tears. She looked at me. I nodded. "And my daughter, my beautiful, brilliant daughter who'd graduated summa cum laude from pharmacy school, who'd been a straight-A student, who'd volunteered at homeless shelters and animal rescues, who'd never asked for anything except to be loved and valued and treated with basic human respect." My daughter took her hand away from her face and spoke. "Yes," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "He hit me." The words hung in the air like a confession and a liberation all at once. Detective Mitchell's jaw tightened. "Has this happened before?" Naomi didn't answer with words. She just nodded. "How many times?" A tear ran down Naomi's cheek, cutting a line through her makeup. I could see the bruise underneath now, purpling at the edges. "I don't know," Naomi whispered. I stopped counting. That's when Derek moved. He lunged toward Naomi, and I don't know what he was planning to do. Grab her, threaten her, hit her again. But he didn't get the chance. Officer Williams was on him in seconds, spinning him around, pulling his arms behind his back. "Derek Michael Thompson, you're under arrest for assault and battery. You have the right to remain silent." The Miranda rights continued, but I stopped listening. I was watching my daughter collapse to her knees in front of me, watching her put her face in her hands, watching 7 years of pain and silence break open all at once. I knelt beside her, my knees protesting, my back aching, but I didn't care, and I wrapped my arms around her. "I've got you," I whispered. "I've got you, baby. You're safe now." She sobbed into my shoulder, full, ugly, desperate sobs that I felt in my bones. Behind us, Derek was being led out in handcuffs, still yelling. Patricia was screaming about lawyers and lawsuits. My family members were crying, talking over each other, asking what they should do. But all of that faded away, because in that moment, in my small apartment that smelled like jollof rice and peach cobbler, I was holding my daughter while she cried the tears she'd been holding back for God knows how long. And I was making a promise. To her, to God, to myself, this would never, ever happen again. Not on my watch. 3 weeks after that Sunday dinner, I stood in my kitchen at 6:47 a.m., the exact time Derek had hit Naomi, and I counted the ways my life had changed. My daughter was sleeping in my guest bedroom. She'd been there for 21 days. She hadn't slept through a single night. My grandson Elijah was on the couch, wrapped in his Spider-Man blanket, having wet the bed again. The third time this week. My savings account, which had held $47,382.19 on November 12th, now held $31,940.67. And Derek Thompson was free. Released on $15,000 bail after 48 hours in custody. Walking the streets of Atlanta while my daughter couldn't walk to the mailbox without having a panic attack. The system, I was learning, moved very slowly for victims, and very quickly for perpetrators. I made coffee, the strong kind dark roast from Revelator Coffee on West Peachtree, and tried not to think about the fact that I'd already spent $15,441.52 on things I'd never budgeted for. Attorney Rachel Kim's retainer, $8,000. Therapy for Naomi, $1,200 so far, at $150 per session, only half covered by insurance. Therapy for Elijah, $900. New locks for my apartment, $487. Security cameras for the door and windows, $1,354.52. The number haunted me, $15,441.52. More than I'd spent on anything except David's funeral in 2003. But it was worth it, every penny, because my daughter was alive. I heard movement in the guest bedroom. Naomi emerged at 7:03 a.m., wearing my old nursing school t-shirt, her hair wrapped in the silk scarf I'd given her last Christmas. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. "Morning, Mama," she said quietly. "Morning, baby. Coffee? Please." We sat at my small kitchen table, the same table where Derek had hit her, and we didn't talk about the elephant in the room. We talked about small things, the weather, Elijah's school, whether we needed milk. We'd gotten good at small talk. It was safer than the big talk, the real talk, the talk about how Naomi startled every time a door closed, how she couldn't be in the same room with men she didn't know, how she'd lost 18 pounds because food tasted like ashes. My daughter was disappearing in front of me, and I didn't know how to bring her back. At 8:15 a.m., my phone rang. Detective Sarah Mitchell. I'd been talking to Sarah almost every day since the arrest. She'd been unusual, more invested than I'd expected, more personally concerned. "Mrs. Walters," she said when I answered, "do you have time to meet today? There are some things we need to discuss about Derek's case." "Of course, when?" "How about 10 a.m., Atlanta Police Department, 226 Peachtree Street, SW. Ask for me at the front desk." I arrived at 9:52 a.m. Sarah met me in the lobby and led me to a small conference room on the 3rd floor. Room 3C. The walls were beige. There was a table, 4 chairs, and a whiteboard covered in notes I couldn't quite read from where I sat. "Mrs. Walters. Vivian, please." Sarah smiled slightly. "Vivian, I've been digging into Derek Thompson's background, and I found some things that concern me." She opened a folder, pulled out documents. Derek owns Thompson Construction Solutions, LLC, incorporated in 2015. They've received $2,347,892 in city contracts over the last 4 years. She slid a document across the table. I saw numbers, dates, project names, streetlight installation, road repair, municipal building renovation. "That seems like a lot," I said carefully. "It is, especially considering some of these bids were suspicious. Thompson Construction wasn't always the lowest bidder. Sometimes they weren't even in the top 3. But they kept winning." Sarah pulled out another document. I pulled Derek's bank records, court order. What I found was interesting. Large cash deposits that don't match his contract payments. $43,000 on March 15th, 2022. $78,500 on July 3rd, 2022. $95,000 on November 1st, 2023, 11 days before he hit Naomi. The numbers swam in front of my eyes. Where did the money come from? That's what I'm trying to find out. But here's what really got my attention. She pulled out a 3rd document. Patricia Thompson's name appears on several of these contracts, listed as accounting consultant. She's been paid $127,000 over 3 years for consulting work. Patricia was a middle school teacher, I said slowly. She retired in 2019. I didn't know she did accounting. She doesn't. She has no accounting license, no business degree, but she's been depositing checks from Thompson Construction into a personal account at SunTrust Bank. Account number ending in 4739. Sarah leaned forward. Vivian, I think Derek and Patricia have been involved in something bigger than domestic violence. I think they've been running a bid rigging scheme, possibly money laundering. And I think Naomi might have seen something, knew something, that made her dangerous to them. My hands were shaking. I folded them in my lap. Are you saying Derek hit my daughter to keep her quiet? I'm saying it's possible. I'm saying I need to keep investigating. But I wanted you to know, because things might get more complicated before they get better. I thought about Naomi, sleeping 14 hours a day because being awake meant remembering. I thought about Elijah, who'd asked me yesterday if his daddy was a bad man and I hadn't known how to answer. How much more complicated? I asked. Sarah's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her expression darkened. Patricia Thompson just posted on Facebook. Did you see it? I didn't have Facebook. I pulled out my phone, opened the app I barely used, searched for Patricia's name. Her latest post, from 43 minutes ago. When ungrateful daughters-in-law try to destroy good men with lies, we must stand strong. My son is a victim of false accusations. Pray for him. Pray for our family. Beware of women who manipulate the system. Hashtag false accusations. Hashtag stand by your man. It had 63 likes, 47 comments. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, cold. She's calling my daughter a liar, I said quietly. Yes, and that's witness intimidation. I'm documenting all of it. Sarah closed the folder. Vivian, I need to tell you something about why I'm so invested in this case. She took a breath. 40 years ago, I was a rookie cop. First year on the job. I got called to a domestic violence situation. Young woman, 25 years old, with a baby. Her husband had put her through a wall. Broken ribs, concussion, fractured wrist. She was terrified. Thought he'd kill her if she pressed charges. Sarah looked at me directly. I helped her leave that night. Drove her to a shelter myself. Gave her my personal number. Told her she didn't have to live like that. 6 months later, I ran into her at a grocery store. She'd left him, had custody of her baby, was working as a nurse. She thanked me, said I'd saved her life. My heart was beating very fast. I never forgot her, Sarah said softly. She was the reason I became a detective, the reason I specialized in domestic violence cases, because I saw what courage looked like. I saw a woman choose survival. She pulled something from her pocket, a photograph, old, faded, from 1983. It showed a young black woman holding a baby. The woman had a bruise on her cheek and her arm in a cast, but she was smiling. This is you, Sarah said, and that's Naomi. You're standing outside the Fulton County Women's Shelter on June 14th, 1983. I took this photo because you asked me to. You said you wanted to remember the day you got free. I couldn't breathe. You were the officer, Officer Mitchell. You had red hair then. I did. I was 22 years old. You were 25. I've been dyeing my hair brown for 30 years, and I've got a lot more wrinkles now. I wasn't sure you'd remember me. I remember, I whispered. You drove me to the shelter in your personal car, a blue Honda Civic. You carried Naomi for me because I couldn't lift her with my broken wrist. You gave me $40 from your own wallet for diapers. Sarah's eyes were wet. When I saw your name on the 911 call 3 weeks ago, I wondered, when I saw you standing in that apartment, protecting your daughter the way I'd helped protect you. I knew. History was repeating itself. But this time, I'm not a rookie. This time, I know how these men operate. She put her hand over mine. I'm going to help Naomi the way I helped you, and I'm going to take down Derek Thompson and anyone who helped him. I promise you that. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. At 11:47 a.m., I left the police station and drove to my daughter's therapy appointment. Dr. Angela Martinez, licensed clinical social worker, office at 567 Piedmont Avenue, NE, $150 per session, Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon. I sat in the waiting room and looked at my phone. Patricia's Facebook post now had 98 likes, 72 comments. Some of them were from people I knew, people from Derek's gym, his business associates. One from a woman named Jennifer Blake who'd been at our church before she'd switched to Patricia's church last year. They believed Patricia. They believed Derek was a victim. My phone buzzed, a text from my sister Lorraine. "Viv, have you seen what Patricia is saying online? She's telling everyone Naomi made it up. She's got people believing her." Another text, from my nephew Thomas. "Aunt Viv, someone spray-painted liar on Naomi's car last night. Her car that's parked at your building. I saw it this morning." I closed my eyes. This was getting worse, not better. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for December 4th, 2023 at 9 a.m. Fulton County Courthouse, 136 Pryor Street, SW, Courtroom 5B. I wore my best suit, navy blue, from Talbot's, bought in 2018 for David's sister's funeral. Naomi wore a gray dress that hung loose on her shrinking frame. She'd done her makeup carefully to cover the fading bruise, but I could still see the yellow-green edges if I looked closely. Derek arrived at 8:53 a.m. with his lawyer, Sterling and Associates, a firm on Peachtree Road with glass offices and a website that screamed money. His lawyer was a woman named Victoria Sterling, 50-something, platinum blonde, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Patricia arrived at 8:56 a.m. She looked at Naomi with pure hatred. Then she looked at me and smiled. The hearing started at 9:07 a.m. Judge Harold Morrison presiding, 68 years old, appointed 2001, with a reputation for being tough but fair. I would learn that fair was subjective. Derek pleaded not guilty. Victoria Sterling spoke about her client's spotless record. A lie. I knew about the 2005 arrest, the 2008 restraining order. She talked about how Derek was a pillar of the community. He'd donated $5,000 to a youth sports program last year. I'd checked. She painted him as a devoted father, a successful businessman, a man who'd made one mistake in a moment of stress. "Your Honor," Victoria said, her voice smooth as honey. "My client admits that he struck his wife. He regrets it deeply. But this was an isolated incident in an otherwise happy marriage. Mrs. Thompson has a history of mental health issues, postpartum depression 7 years ago, ongoing therapy for anxiety. We believe she may be exaggerating the severity of this incident to gain advantage in an anticipated divorce proceeding." My daughter's lawyer, Rachel Kim, stood up immediately. "Objection, Your Honor. There is no divorce proceeding, and Ms. Sterling is using my client's mental health treatment, which is commendable, not shameful, to discredit her credibility. This is victim blaming." Judge Morrison looked tired. "Ms. Sterling, please stick to the facts of this case." "Of course, Your Honor. The fact is, one slap, however regrettable, occurred after Mrs. Thompson repeatedly provoked my client, disrespected his mother, and announced her intention to neglect her child in order to pursue employment her husband had already explained they couldn't afford. I wanted to scream. Every word was a lie, a twisting of what had actually happened. Rachel presented evidence. Photos of Naomi's bruise, taken at the hospital the night of the assault. Medical records from previous accidents. 9 emergency room visits in 5 years. A statement from me about what I'd witnessed. Then Patricia took the stand. She wore pearls, a cream-colored suit. She looked like everybody's kind grandmother. "Mrs. Thompson," Victoria Sterling said gently, "can you describe your son's relationship with his wife?" "Derek loves Naomi," Patricia said. Her voice was soft, sad. "He's done everything for her, worked 60-hour weeks to provide for their family, encouraged her education, even though it put them in debt. He's a wonderful father to Elijah. But Naomi, she's never been satisfied, always wanting more. More money, more freedom, more attention." "And what happened at the dinner on November 12th? "Naomi was disrespectful to me, to Vivian, to everyone there. She announced that she was going back to work full-time, which would mean putting 7-year-old Elijah in after-school care with virtual strangers. Derek simply tried to have a calm conversation about their family's needs, and Naomi became hysterical. She started screaming. Derek tried to calm her down, and there was contact. Barely a tap. Naomi is dramatic. She always has been." I felt Naomi's hand find mine. It was ice cold. "And the accusation that you applauded?" Victoria asked. Patricia looked directly at the judge. "I absolutely did not applaud. I was shocked by Naomi's behavior. I may have clapped my hands together once in frustration, a gesture of exasperation, but I certainly did not celebrate any kind of violence. 14 people were there. If you ask them honestly, without Vivian's influence, they'll tell you the truth. It was masterful. She was calling me a liar without actually saying it." Rachel cross-examined. She asked about the medical records. Patricia said Naomi was clumsy. She asked about previous incidents. Patricia said there were no previous incidents. Naomi was making it all up for attention. "Mrs. Thompson," Rachel said, "are you aware that your son was arrested for domestic violence in 2005? "Objection." Victoria Sterling was on her feet. "That arrest never resulted in charges. It's inadmissible." "Sustained," Judge Morrison said. Rachel tried again. "Your Honor, this establishes a pattern. Counselor, we're here to evaluate this specific incident, not to retry cases from 18 years ago." The hearing lasted 2 hours and 37 minutes. At 11:44 a.m., Judge Morrison made his ruling. "The evidence shows that an assault occurred. However, I'm not convinced that Mr. Thompson represents an ongoing danger. This appears to be a first-time offense in the context of a marital dispute. Mr. Thompson will be required to complete anger management counseling, 12 weeks, court-approved program. He will have supervised visitation with his son, 2 hours per week at the Fulton County Visitation Center. The protective order will remain in effect, prohibiting direct contact with Mrs. Walters Thompson except during supervised visitation." He looked at Derek. "Mr. Thompson, I want to be clear. If you violate this order, if you contact your wife outside of approved visitation, if you fail to complete your counseling, I will revoke your bail and you will await trial in custody. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," Derek said. He looked appropriately remorseful. "However," Judge Morrison continued, "I want to say something to everyone in this courtroom. Marriage is difficult. Parenting is difficult. We all make mistakes. One slap in a moment of extreme stress does not define a man's character. Mr. Thompson has no prior convictions. He has a successful business. He supports his family. I believe in second chances. I believe in rehabilitation. If Mr. Thompson completes his counseling and demonstrates genuine change, I see no reason why this family cannot reconcile." The words hit me like physical blows. One slap doesn't define a man. I believe in second chances. This family can reconcile. Naomi made a sound beside me, a small broken sound. We walked out of that courthouse at 12:03 p.m. into bright December sunshine, and my daughter stopped on the steps and bent over like she was going to be sick. "He doesn't believe me," she whispered. "The judge doesn't believe me." Rachel put a hand on her shoulder. "He believes you. He just thinks Derek deserves leniency. It's not right, but it's common. We'll keep fighting." "I have to send Elijah to see him," Naomi said. "I have to send my baby to be alone with the man who hits me. Because the judge thinks it's fine. Because one slap doesn't matter." I helped her to my car, drove her home, put her to bed at 1:17 p.m. and listened to her cry through the wall. At 2:34 p.m., I sat in my kitchen and looked at my bank statement. $31,940.67 to $28,392.11, Rachel's additional fees for the hearing. $3,548.56. I had a decision to make. I could keep fighting this fight, could pay for lawyers and therapy and security systems until my retirement savings were gone. Or I could accept the judge's ruling, accept that Derek would be in our lives, hope that the anger management worked, and he really did change. At 2:47 p.m., I opened my laptop, searched for Derek Thompson, Athens, Georgia, arrest 2005. I found it. Amanda Peterson. She'd made a statement to police. "He threatened to kill me if I told anyone. He said no one would believe me anyway because he was a college graduate and I was just a waitress. He was right. I dropped the charges and left Georgia because I was afraid for my life. I searched for Derek Thompson Restraining Order 2008. I found that too. Keisha Williams. Her petition for the order. Derek Thompson has followed me to work, sent threatening text messages, and appeared at my home uninvited. He believes he owns me. I am terrified. I printed both documents, added them to my growing folder. Then I did something I hadn't done in 20 years. I got down on my knees in my living room and I prayed. Not the polite prayers I said at church, not the grateful prayers I said before meals. I prayed like my life depended on it, because my daughter's life did. God, I said, I need help. I need to know what to do. I need to protect her. Please, please show me the way. I stayed on my knees for 11 minutes. When I stood up, my phone was ringing. Detective Sarah Mitchell. Vivian, where are you? Home. Why? I need you to stay there. Lock your doors. I'm sending a patrol car to your building. My heart stopped. What happened? Derek just left a voicemail for Naomi. On the phone, we returned to her last week from evidence. He shouldn't have this number. He's violating the protective order. What did he say? Sarah's voice was grim. He said, this isn't over. You think you won? You destroyed my life, you and your mother. But I know things. I know what you know. And if you don't drop this, I'll make sure you regret it. Then he said something about Elijah. I'm his father. You can't keep him from me. I'll take him if I have to. I sat down hard. He threatened to take Elijah? We're treating this as a credible threat. The patrol car will be there in 5 minutes. I'm applying for a warrant to arrest Derek for violating the protective order. He's going to be picked up within the hour. Sarah, Vivian, there's something else. Something I found in Derek's financial records. I think Naomi might have seen it. I think that's what this is really about. I need to talk to her. Can I come by tonight around 7? Yes. Please. I hung up, looked at the clock. 3:12 p.m. I had 3 hours and 48 minutes to prepare for whatever was coming. I didn't know then that in those 3 hours and 48 minutes, everything would change. I didn't know that Naomi had been hiding a secret of her own. And I didn't know that by tomorrow morning, Derek Thompson would be in a holding cell with no bail. But I was about to find out. Sarah Mitchell arrived at my apartment at 6:58 p.m. She came with Officer Williams and a woman I didn't know, introduced as FBI Agent Monica Torres. FBI. My mouth went dry. We sat in my living room. I'd made coffee. Nobody touched it. Where's Naomi? Sarah asked. In the shower. She should be out soon. Good. I need to talk to both of you. Agent Torres opened a laptop. Mrs. Walters, Derek Thompson is under federal investigation for wire fraud, money laundering, and bid rigging. We've been building this case for 8 months. His domestic violence arrest brought him to our attention. When Detective Mitchell discovered the financial irregularities, she contacted us. I tried to process this. Federal investigation? Thompson Construction has defrauded the city of Atlanta out of an estimated $1.2 million over 4 years. Fake invoices, inflated costs, kickbacks to city officials. Patricia Thompson kept the books. We have evidence linking her to at least 7 fraudulent transactions. Sarah leaned forward. Vivian, did Naomi ever work for Derek's company? Help with paperwork, bookkeeping, anything? Yes. The first 2 years of their marriage. Before Elijah was born. She did administrative work. Filed documents, handled invoices. Why? Because if she saw something, knew something about the fraud, that would explain why Derek has been so aggressive. He's not just an abuser. He's a criminal trying to protect his operation. The bathroom door opened. Naomi came out wearing my bathrobe, her hair wet. She saw the agents and froze. Mom? It's okay, baby. They need to talk to you about Derek's business. Naomi sat down slowly. Her hands were shaking. Naomi, Agent Torres said gently, did you see anything unusual when you worked for Thompson Construction? Anything that didn't make sense? Naomi looked at me, then at Sarah, then at her hands. I saw a lot of things, she said quietly. But I thought I was wrong. I thought I was being paranoid. What kind of things? Invoices for materials that never arrived. Payments to subcontractors I'd never heard of. Derek would tell me to process them, and I did, because he was my husband and I trusted him. But I started noticing patterns. Money going out, money coming back in different amounts. Cash deposits that didn't match our contracts. She took a shaky breath. One night, this was January 2021, right after New Year's, I asked him about it. About a $75,000 payment to a company called Precision Services LLC. I couldn't find any paperwork for what they'd done. Derek got angry. Really angry. He said I was questioning his business judgment, that I didn't understand construction, that I needed to stay in my lane. Did he hit you that night? Sarah asked. Naomi nodded. It was the first time he used his fist, not just a slap. He punched me in the ribs, broke one. I told the ER I fell down the stairs. I felt something crack inside my chest. After that, Naomi continued, I stopped asking questions, but I didn't stop noticing. I got scared, so I started documenting. Sarah and Agent Torres exchanged glances. Documenting how? Agent Torres asked. Naomi stood up, walked to the guest bedroom, came back with her phone. The old one, not the one Derek knew about. I recorded him, she said, for 2 years. Every argument, every time he hit me, every conversation about money. I kept it all on this phone and uploaded it to a cloud account he didn't know about. I thought maybe one day I'd need proof, that no one would believe me otherwise. She unlocked the phone. Her hands were trembling so badly she could barely type. There are 63 audio files, ranging from 2 minutes to 47 minutes, all time-stamped, all saved with notes about what happened before and after. Sarah took the phone carefully, like it was made of glass. Naomi, have you listened to these recently? No, I couldn't. I just kept recording and uploading and trying to survive. Can we listen now? With your permission? Naomi looked at me. I nodded. Yes, she whispered. Sarah scrolled through the files, selected one labeled March 15th, 2022, after dinner. She pressed play. Derek's voice filled my living room, angry, escalating. You think you're so smart, don't you? Questioning my business decisions. You're a pharmacist, Naomi. You count pills. You don't understand real business. Naomi's voice, quiet and scared. I just asked about the deposit, Derek. $43,000 in cash? Where did it come from? That's none of your fucking business. We're married. Our finances? The sound of impact. A slap, maybe, or a shove. Naomi's cry of pain. Then Patricia's voice in the background. Good, Derek. She needs to learn respect. Hit her again if she keeps talking. Derek. Shut up, Naomi. You don't ask about the cash. You don't ask about the business. You take care of Elijah and you keep your mouth shut. Or I swear to God. Naomi. Or what? You'll hit me harder? You'll break more ribs? A pause. Then Derek's voice, very quiet and very cold. Or I'll take Elijah and disappear, and you'll never see him again. Try me. Sarah stopped the recording. The silence in my apartment was absolute. I looked at my daughter. She was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. There are 62 more, she whispered. Some are worse than that. Agent Torres closed her laptop. Naomi, these recordings are evidence. Evidence of domestic violence, and evidence of Derek discussing illegal financial transactions. With your permission, we'd like to use them in our federal investigation. Yes, Naomi said immediately. Yes, use them. Use all of it. I want him to face consequences. I want him in prison. Her voice broke. I pulled her into my arms. Sarah looked at me over Naomi's head. Her eyes were wet. This changes everything, she said quietly. We can charge him with witness intimidation, threats, conspiracy. Combined with the financial fraud, he's looking at serious federal time. 10 years, maybe more. And Patricia? I asked. Her too. She's on these recordings. She's an accessory to domestic violence and an active participant in the fraud. Agent Torres stood. We'll need to get a forensic copy of these files. We'll also need Naomi's testimony about what she witnessed while working for the company. This is going to take time. But Mrs. Walters, Naomi, I want you to know, you did the right thing. These recordings are some of the strongest evidence I've ever seen in a serious family case. You documented everything. You protected yourself in the only way you knew how. Naomi rested her head against my shoulder and nodded. After the agents left, at 8:47 p.m., I sat with my daughter in the quiet of my apartment. Why didn't you tell me? I asked softly. About the recordings? Because I was ashamed, she whispered. Because I spent 2 years documenting what was happening to me and still couldn't walk away. I thought that meant I was weak, that I was letting it continue. Oh, sweetheart. No, you were collecting proof. You were trying to stay safe. You were being careful. I felt like a coward. You were surviving. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then Naomi spoke again, her voice barely audible. Mom, there's something else I need to tell you. Something I've never said out loud. My chest tightened. He didn't just hurt me physically, she said. He crossed boundaries no one ever has the right to cross. More than once. When I said no, when I was too tired, when I was recovering from the broken rib. He said it was his right as my husband. He said I owed him. And Patricia, her voice cracked. Patricia told me that was normal, that wives submit, that I was being selfish. I held her while she sobbed. Full, broken sobs that came from somewhere deep and ancient and wounded. And I made another promise. To God, to my daughter, to myself. Derek Thompson would never ever touch her again. Even if I had to spend every penny I had. Even if I had to stand between them myself. Never again. It was 2:17 a.m. on December 9th, 2023, when I heard the banging on my door. I'd been asleep for maybe 40 minutes. Light sleep, the kind where every sound wakes you. Since Derek's voicemail 5 days ago, I'd been sleeping with my phone next to my pillow, the baseball bat David used to keep by our bed within arm's reach. The banging came again. Loud, aggressive, fists on wood. Then Derek's voice, slurred and furious. Naomi, open this door. I know you're in there. I grabbed my phone. The security camera app showed Derek on my doorstep, swaying slightly. Drunk or high or both. I was already dialing 911 as I moved toward Naomi's room. 911, what's your emergency? Derek Thompson is at my door, violating his protective order. 847 Riverside Drive, apartment 4C. He's intoxicated and threatening. I need police immediately. Officers are on the way, ma'am. Stay on the line. Is he trying to break in? Bang, bang, bang. Naomi, you destroyed my life. You and your bitch mother. You think the FBI scares me? You think those recordings matter? He didn't finish the sentence. The sound of splintering wood told me he'd kicked the door. Yes, I told the operator. He's breaking down my door. Naomi ran out of her room, eyes wide with terror. Elijah was behind her, crying. Get in the bathroom, I said. Lock the door. Don't come out until I say. Mom. Now, Naomi. She grabbed Elijah and ran. I picked up David's baseball bat, Louisville Slugger, Ashwood, 32 inches long, and I stood in front of that bathroom door. Derek's voice was getting louder, more violent. I'll kill you! You hear me, Naomi? You think you can destroy me? Take my son? I'll fucking kill you! Another kick. The door frame cracked. Ma'am, officers are 2 minutes away, the operator said. Stay on the line. Don't engage with him. If he comes through that door, I said calmly, I will defend my family. One more kick. The door burst open. Derek Thompson stood in my doorway, breathing hard. His eyes were wild. He looked like a stranger. He saw me with the bat. He laughed. You gonna stop me, old woman? You think— Derek Michael Thompson, I said, my voice steady as stone. The police are 30 seconds away. If you take one more step into this apartment, I will use this bat to defend my daughter and grandson. I am 65 years old and I am not afraid of you. Leave now. He took a step forward. I raised the bat. We stood there, facing each other across my destroyed doorway. And then I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Sirens. Derek heard them too. For just a second, his expression changed, from rage to fear. He tried to run. He didn't make it to the stairs. 4 officers tackled him in the hallway at 2:23 a.m. I watched through my doorway as they put him in handcuffs, as they read him his rights, as they hauled him to his feet. Detective Sarah Mitchell arrived at 2:31 a.m., out of breath like she'd been running. She saw my broken door, saw me still holding the bat, saw Naomi and Elijah emerging from the bathroom, both shaking. It's over, Sarah said quietly. He violated the protective order, attempted breaking and entering, made credible death threats. Plus, the FBI has enough evidence from those recordings to charge him federally. Judge Morrison has no choice now. Derek's not getting bail this time. He's going to be held pending trial. How long? I asked. The trial? Probably 6 to 8 months. And if he's convicted? With the federal charges and the violence? Sarah looked at Naomi. 10 to 15 years. Minimum. Naomi's knees buckled. I caught her. "It's over, baby," I whispered. "It's really over." We sat on my couch, me, Naomi, and Elijah, while crime scene techs photographed my broken door and officers took statements. At 4:17 a.m., a victim advocate from the Atlanta Police Department arrived with paperwork for emergency housing assistance. Sarah had called her. "We can get you into a secure apartment within 48 hours, the advocate said. "Subsidized rent for 6 months while you get on your feet. It's part of a program for domestic violence survivors." Naomi looked at me. "Mom, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm telling you. We're taking it." At 5:33 a.m., the sun started to rise outside my broken door. My apartment looked like a crime scene, because it was. But my daughter was alive. My grandson was safe. And Derek Thompson was in a cell. For the first time in 3 weeks, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we were going to survive this. 4 months after Derek kicked down my door, I sat in a federal courthouse at 75 Ted Turner Drive, SW, Atlanta, on a Thursday morning, April 18th, 2024, at 8:47 a.m., waiting for the trial that would determine whether my daughter could truly be free. The numbers had changed since that night. My savings account, $47,382.19 to $4,891.34 Naomi's therapy sessions. 47 total, $7,050 spent Elijah's therapy sessions. 31 total, $4,650 spent. New apartment deposit and first month's rent, subsidized. $1,200, security upgrades for new apartment. $2,187, total cost of safety. $42,490.85. But Derek Thompson was in custody. No bail. Held at Fulton County Jail since December 9th, 2023, 131 days. And today, the federal government would present their case against him and Patricia Thompson. United States of America versus Derek Michael Thompson and Patricia Ann Thompson. Case number 124, CR00089, SCJ. Charges against Derek. Wire fraud, 18 counts. Money laundering, 12 counts. Witness tampering, 4 counts. Assault, 3 counts federal because it crossed state lines when he threatened Naomi via phone. Stalking, 2 counts. Charges against Patricia. Wire fraud, 11 counts. Money laundering, 9 counts. Conspiracy, 6 counts. Accessory to assault, 1 count. If convicted on all counts, Derek faced up to 147 years in prison. Patricia faced up to 89 years. Neither would likely serve anywhere near that long. But the numbers meant something. They meant accountability. I sat in the gallery with Naomi on my right and Detective Sarah Mitchell on my left. Reverend Grace Thompson and my sister Lorraine were in the row behind us. At 9:03 a.m., they brought Derek in. He'd lost weight, maybe 30 pounds. His orange jumpsuit hung loose on his frame. His hair was longer, unkempt. He didn't look like the successful businessman who'd sat at my table on November 12th. He looked like what he was, a criminal. He saw Naomi. His expression hardened. Even from 15 feet away, I could see him mouth something. Sarah saw it too. She made a note on her pad. "He just violated the no-contact order again," she whispered. "In front of federal marshals. Some people never learn." At 9:08 a.m., they brought Patricia in. She'd maintained her appearance better. Hair done, makeup perfect even without access to her expensive products. She wore a gray suit that the defense had clearly provided, designed to make her look like a respectable grandmother, not a criminal. When she saw me, she smiled. That same cold smile from the dinner. I didn't look away. I stared right back until she broke eye contact first. The trial lasted 11 days. I won't tell you about all of it. The technical testimony about wire transfers and fraudulent invoices. The accounting experts who explained how Patricia had created a shell company called Precision Services LLC that existed only on paper. The city officials who testified about suspicious bid awards. I'll tell you about the moments that mattered. FBI agent Monica Torres testified about the investigation. She presented evidence methodically, building the case brick by brick. Thompson Construction received $2,347,892 in city contracts between January 2019 and November 2023, she said. Our forensic accountants determined that approximately $1,187,000 of that amount was fraudulent, inflated invoices, fake subcontractors, materials that were never delivered but paid for anyway. She pulled up a chart on the screen. Here's one example. On March 15, 2022, Thompson Construction billed the City of Atlanta $127,000 for streetlight installation on Memorial Drive. The actual cost of materials and labor, $41,000. The difference, $86,000, was deposited in cash to Derek Thompson's personal account at Wells Fargo, account number ending in 7823. She clicked to another slide. That same day, Patricia Thompson deposited $43,000 cash into her account at SunTrust Bank, account ending in 4739. The remaining $43,000 was paid to Precision Services, LLC, a company that existed only on paper, registered to a P.O. box in Athens, Georgia. Patricia Thompson is the sole owner of Precision Services, LLC. The jury was taking notes. All 12 of them. How did they think they wouldn't get caught? One juror asked during a break. They'd been doing it for 4 years, Agent Torres said. Success breeds arrogance, Naomi testified. I watched my daughter walk to the witness stand in a navy blue dress, her hands shaking but her voice steady. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Walsh, walked her through it gently. Mrs. Walters Thompson, how long were you married to the defendant? 7 years. We married on June 8, 2016. I filed for divorce on December 15, 2023. During your marriage, did you work for Thompson Construction Solutions? Yes, from June 2016 to March 2018. I handled administrative work, invoices, filing, correspondence. During that time, did you notice anything unusual about the company's finances? Naomi took a breath. Yes. Starting in late 2016, I noticed invoices for subcontractors I'd never heard of, payments for materials that never arrived at job sites. When I asked Derek about it, he told me I didn't understand construction. He told me to mind my own business. What happened when you persisted in asking questions? Naomi's voice dropped. He hit me. The first time was in January 2017. I'd asked about a $23,000 payment to a company called Summit Engineering Services. Derek punched me in the ribs. Broke one. I told the emergency room I'd fallen downstairs. Objection! Derek's lawyer was on his feet. This is a fraud trial, not a domestic violence case. Your Honor, Jennifer Walsh said calmly, this testimony establishes why Mrs. Walters Thompson stopped questioning the fraudulent transactions. It's directly relevant to the witness tampering charges. Overruled. Continue, Ms. Walsh. Jennifer turned back to Naomi. What did you do after your husband assaulted you for asking questions? I stopped asking, but I started documenting. I took photos of invoices. I recorded conversations. I kept everything on a secret phone and uploaded it to a cloud account Derek didn't know about. Why did you do that? Because I knew something was wrong, and I knew that one day I might need proof. I thought no one would believe me otherwise. Jennifer pulled up an image on the screen. An invoice from Thompson Construction to the City of Atlanta. $89,000 for concrete work on a municipal building. Mrs. Walters Thompson, do you recognize this invoice? Yes. I processed it in February 2018. I remember because the concrete was supposedly from Reliable Materials, Inc., but when I called to confirm delivery, the number was disconnected. There was no Reliable Materials, Inc. What did you do? I took a photo of the invoice. I still have it. Time-stamped February 14, 2018, at 3:47 p.m. Jennifer entered the photo into evidence. Your witness, Mr. Sterling. Derek's lawyer, Victoria Sterling's partner, Marcus Sterling, approached Naomi like a shark circling prey. Mrs. Walters Thompson, you claim you were documenting fraud, but isn't it true that you were planning to use this information to extort your husband? To threaten him during a divorce? No. You never told him you had these photos. These recordings. You kept them secret. Doesn't that suggest ulterior motives? Naomi looked directly at him. I kept them secret because I was afraid. I kept them secret because every time I questioned anything, Derek hit me. I kept them secret because his mother told me I deserved to be hit. I kept them secret because I was trying to survive. Her voice didn't waver. I didn't extort anyone. I documented crimes. There's a difference. The prosecution played the audio recordings. All 63 of them. Well, not all. The judge allowed 12 representative samples. 12 moments captured on Naomi's hidden phone. The courtroom listened to Derek threatening Naomi, hitting her, telling her she was worthless, that no one would believe her, that he owned her. They listened to Patricia's voice in the background. She deserves it. Hit her again. She needs to learn. They listened to 7-year-old Elijah crying, begging, "Daddy, please don't hurt Mommy." 3 jurors were crying by the end. One, a woman in her 60s, juror number 7, looked at Derek with pure disgust. Derek's lawyer tried to object, to argue the recordings were improperly obtained, but the judge overruled every objection. These recordings were made by the victim to document her own abuse. They're admissible. When the playback ended, the courtroom was silent for a full 30 seconds. Then Patricia's lawyer, a public defender named Thomas Green, stood up. "Your Honor, my client would like to make a statement." Everyone turned to look at Patricia. She was crying. Not the dignified tears of a wrongly accused woman. These were ugly tears, desperate tears. "I didn't know," she said. Her voice cracked. "I didn't know Derek was involved in fraud. I just did what he asked. I kept the books. I didn't ask questions." "Mrs. Thompson," the judge said, "you're not on the stand. If you wish to testify, I need to say this." Patricia looked at the jury. "I made mistakes. I was trying to protect my son. I thought if I supported him, if I helped him succeed, he'd be happy. I didn't know he was hurting Naomi. I didn't know—" "Your Honor!" Jennifer Walsh was on her feet. "Mrs. Thompson is on the recordings. Her voice is clearly heard encouraging violence. This is perjury." The judge banged his gavel. "Mrs. Thompson, sit down. Mr. Green, control your client." But Patricia wasn't done. "You want to know the truth?" She was standing now, her voice rising. "Fine, I'll tell you the truth. Derek learned this from me. I taught him that women need to be controlled, that they need to be kept in line, because that's what my mother taught me. That's what happened to me." The courtroom went silent. "Mrs. Thompson," her lawyer started. "No, they want the truth? Here it is." She turned to face the judge directly. "I killed my son." Gasps filled the courtroom. "Not Derek. My first son, Michael, Derek's older brother. Michael died in 1979. He was 6 years old. The official report said he fell down the stairs. But he didn't fall. I pushed him." The judge called an immediate recess. The courtroom erupted. Marshals surrounded Patricia. Naomi grabbed my hand so hard it hurt. "Mom, did you know about this?" she whispered. "No," I said. "I had no idea." When court reconvened 2 hours later, the prosecutor had obtained Patricia's sealed juvenile records from 1979. Jennifer Walsh stood before the jury and read them aloud. Patricia Ann Williams, age 16, pled guilty in 1979 to involuntary manslaughter in the death of her half-brother, Michael Williams, age 6. Patricia was the primary caretaker while their mother worked. On April 3, 1979, Michael broke a plate while doing dishes. Patricia grabbed him by the shoulders and shoved him toward the stairs. Michael fell. He died from head trauma 2 hours later at Grady Memorial Hospital. The prosecutor looked up. Patricia served 22 months in juvenile detention. Her record was sealed when she turned 18. She changed her name from Williams to Thompson when she married Derek's father in 1984. Derek was born in 1982, 2 years before the marriage. He never knew about Michael. He never knew his mother had killed a child. I looked at Derek. He was staring at his mother with an expression I'd never seen on his face before. Betrayal, horror, understanding. Derek grew up with a mother who believed violence was acceptable, Jennifer continued. A mother who'd killed one child and then raised another to believe that control, dominance, and abuse were normal. The cycle continued. She turned to the jury. Patricia Thompson is not just an accomplice to fraud. She's the architect of a family system built on violence. She taught her son that hitting women was appropriate, that controlling them was necessary, that their voices didn't matter. And when Naomi dared to question, to resist, to document, Patricia encouraged Derek to silence her, just like she'd silenced Michael 45 years ago. The trial paused for 3 days while psychiatrists evaluated Patricia. Derek's lawyer filed a motion to sever his case from his mother's. My client didn't know about his mother's past. This prejudices the jury against him. The motion was denied. May 2nd, 2024. Closing arguments. Jennifer Walsh spoke for 90 minutes. She laid out the evidence meticulously. The fraudulent invoices, the shell companies, the cash deposits, the recordings of violence, the threats. Derek Thompson and Patricia Thompson defrauded the city of Atlanta out of $1,187,000. They created a criminal enterprise that lasted 4 years, and when Naomi Walters Thompson discovered their crimes, they tried to silence her with violence. She pointed to Naomi sitting in the gallery. That woman survived 7 years of abuse. She documented everything while fearing for her life. She protected her son while her husband threatened to take him. She finally escaped when her mother, Vivian Walters, made a phone call that saved her life. Jennifer turned to the jury. This isn't just about money. It's about power. It's about two people who believed they were above the law, above accountability, above basic human decency. It's about a system of abuse that started when Patricia Thompson killed a 6-year-old child and continued when she taught her son that violence was acceptable. She paused. The defense will tell you Derek was a victim too, that his mother's abuse made him this way. And maybe there's truth to that, but being a victim doesn't give you the right to create more victims. Derek Thompson is 41 years old. He made choices. He chose to hit his wife. He chose to threaten her. He chose to defraud the city. He chose to protect his crimes with violence. Justice demands accountability. I ask you to find both defendants guilty on all counts. Derek's lawyer argued that Derek was manipulated by his mother, that he didn't understand the financial crimes, that his violence was learned behavior requiring treatment, not punishment. Patricia's lawyer argued that she was a victim of her own childhood trauma, that she'd been 16 when she killed Michael, that she'd spent 45 years trying to atone. The jury deliberated for 11 hours and 37 minutes. On May 3, 2024, at 4:15 p.m., they returned. On count 1, wire fraud, how do you find? Guilty. On count 2, money laundering, how do you find? Guilty. All 39 counts against Derek. Guilty. All 26 counts against Patricia. Guilty. 6 weeks later, June 14, 2024, 10 a.m., we returned to the same courtroom for sentencing. Judge Sarah Chen, 62 years old, appointed to the federal bench in 2019, known for tough but fair sentences, presided. She'd read everything. All the pre-sentencing reports, all the psychiatric evaluations, all the victim impact statements. I'd written one. Naomi had written one. Even Elijah, with his child therapist's help, had drawn pictures and dictated words about how he felt. Derek was sentenced first. Mr. Thompson, Judge Chen said, you defrauded the city that employed you. You abused your wife for 7 years. You threatened her life. You violated protective orders. You showed no remorse until you were caught. She looked at him directly. The sentencing guidelines suggest 87 to 108 months. I'm sentencing you to 144 months, 12 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You will also pay restitution of $1,187,000 to the city of Atlanta and $47,000 to Vivian Walters for expenses she incurred protecting your victim. Derek's face went white. Additionally, you are permanently prohibited from any contact with Naomi Walters Thompson or Elijah Thompson. Your parental rights are terminated effective immediately. You will never see your son again. Naomi's hand found mine. Patricia was sentenced next. Mrs. Thompson, you killed a child when you were 16. You spent 45 years hiding that truth. You raised your son in an environment of violence. You helped him defraud the city. You encouraged him to abuse his wife. Judge Chen's voice was cold. You are 74 years old. I'm sentencing you to 96 months, 8 years, in federal prison. Given your age and health, you may not survive this sentence. But justice demands accountability. Patricia started crying. Please, Your Honor, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You're sorry you were caught, the judge said. Not sorry for what you did. That's not true. Mrs. Thompson, you had 45 years to show remorse, to change, to stop the cycle. You chose not to. This court is adjourned. We walked out of that courthouse at 11:47 a.m. into bright June sunshine. Naomi stopped on the steps, the same steps where she'd broken down after the preliminary hearing 7 months ago. But this time, she wasn't crying. She was smiling. "Mom," she said, "it's really over." "Yes, baby, it's really over." 9 months after the sentencing, March 2025, I sat in my new apartment at 1240 Monroe Drive, NE, apartment 2F, drinking coffee on my small balcony. The numbers had changed again. Derek's restitution payment to me, $47,000, paid from seized assets. My savings account, $4,891.34 to $23,614.89. Naomi's new job at Emory Hospital Pharmacy, $68,000 per year. Elijah's last therapy session, February 14th, 2025. Therapist said he'd graduated. Days since I'd been afraid. 127 and counting. Naomi had moved into her own apartment in January, a 2-bedroom in Virginia Highland, 15 minutes from mine. Close enough to visit daily, far enough for independence. She still had bad days. Days when she couldn't get out of bed, when the memories were too heavy, when the panic attacks came back. But she also had good days. Days when she laughed. Days when she made plans for the future. Days when she told me she was proud of herself for surviving. Elijah was doing better. He'd stopped wetting the bed. He'd made friends at his new school. He'd asked me last week, "Grandma, why did Daddy hurt Mommy?" And I'd given him the answer his therapist had helped us prepare. "Your daddy was hurt when he was little, and he never learned how to be healthy, so he hurt other people. But that wasn't your fault, and it wasn't your mommy's fault. And you're learning different. You're learning that love is gentle." He'd nodded. "I'm not going to be like Daddy." "No, baby, you're not." My phone rang at 9:47 a.m. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello? Mrs. Walters?" A woman's voice, young, scared. "My name is Amanda Peterson. I was Derek Thompson's girlfriend in 2005. I saw the news about his sentencing. I wanted to thank you." I sat up straighter. "Thank me?" "For stopping him. For protecting your daughter. I couldn't stop him. I tried to press charges in 2005, but I dropped them. I was terrified. I left Georgia and never came back. I've lived with that guilt for 19 years. Her voice cracked. "But you didn't leave. You didn't give up. You saved Naomi. And that means something to me. It means I wasn't crazy. It means he really was that dangerous. It means it wasn't my fault." I closed my eyes. "It was never your fault, Amanda. Never." We talked for 27 minutes. She told me her story. I told her mine. Before we hung up, she said something that stayed with me. "Mrs. Walters, you should know. There are other women. Women Derek hurt before Naomi. I'm part of a group. We're thinking of coming forward. Not for a trial. He's already in prison. But for ourselves. To tell our stories. To stop carrying his secrets." "That's brave," I said. "You showed us it was possible. Thank you." After I hung up, I sat with that for a while. One phone call on November 12th, 2023 at 6:47 p.m. had changed everything. Not just for Naomi, not just for me, for Amanda, for Keisha, for Jennifer, for all the women Derek had hurt over 20 years. One call had started an avalanche. In April 2025, 1 year and 5 months after the dinner, Naomi received a letter. Federal Correctional Institution, Jessup, Maryland. Return address, Derek M. Thompson, inmate number 47,839-112. She called me before opening it. "Mom, should I read it?" "That's your choice, baby. You don't owe him anything, not even your attention." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I think I need to, for me, to close the door completely." I drove to her apartment. We sat on her couch, the one she'd bought with her first paycheck from Emory, soft gray fabric that made her smile every time she looked at it, and she opened the envelope. The letter was 3 pages, handwritten. I won't share all of it, but I'll share what mattered. "Naomi, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to believe me. I'm in therapy here, real therapy. They made me confront things I didn't want to see. Things about my mother. Things about myself. I learned that my mother killed my brother. Michael, I never knew. I was born 2 years after he died. I grew up thinking I was her only child. I grew up thinking the way she treated me, the hitting, the control, the violence, was normal. Was love. It wasn't. And what I did to you wasn't love either. I hit you. I raped you. I controlled you. I threatened to take Elijah. I made you afraid in your own home for 7 years. I convinced you it was your fault when it was always, always mine. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling you, you were right to call the police. You were right to leave. You were right to testify. You saved Elijah from becoming me. You broke a cycle I didn't even know existed. Thank you for that. I'll be here for another 11 years. By the time I get out, Elijah will be 18. A man. I'll never contact him. I'll never contact you. I'm signing away my parental rights permanently. I hope you build a beautiful life. You deserve it. I'm sorry. I will spend the rest of my life being sorry. Derek, Naomi folded the letter carefully, put it back in the envelope. How do you feel? I asked. I don't know, she said honestly. Part of me wants to believe he's changed. Part of me thinks this is manipulation. Part of me just doesn't care anymore. She looked at me. I'm keeping this. Not for me. For Elijah. In case he ever asks about his father. In case he ever wonders. But I'm not responding. Derek doesn't get my energy anymore. That's wisdom, I said. I learned it from you. On November 10th, 2024, 2 years after the dinner that changed everything, I hosted Sunday supper again. Not at 847 Riverside Drive, apartment 4C. That apartment was behind me. I'd moved to Monroe Drive in February, downsized to a smaller space that felt like mine, not haunted by memories. My new dining table sat 6 people comfortably. I'd made jollof rice again. Fried plantains, collard greens, peach cobbler. Naomi arrived at 5:52 p.m. with Elijah. My sister Lorraine came at 6 o'clock. Reverend Grace and her husband Robert at 6:03. Detective Sarah Mitchell at 6:08. We said grace. Reverend Grace prayed for protection, for healing, for new beginnings. We ate. We laughed. Elijah told a joke he'd learned at school. Naomi talked about her promotion at work. She was now the lead pharmacist on her shift, supervising 3 other pharmacists. At 7:15 p.m., after everyone had second helpings of cobbler, Naomi stood up. I want to say something, she said. Everyone quieted. 2 years ago, at a dinner just like this, my life fell apart. Derek hit me. His mother applauded. And I thought that was the end. I thought I'd lost everything. She looked at me. But Mom made a phone call. And that call didn't just save my life. It gave me my life back. It showed me I was worth saving. It showed me that silence isn't safety. Speaking is. Her voice was strong, clear. I start a new job next month. I'm going to be a counselor at the Atlanta Domestic Violence Intervention Center. Part-time in addition to my pharmacy work. I'm going to help other women document their abuse, escape their abusers, and reclaim their lives. I started crying. Because of you, Mom. Because you showed me what courage looks like. She raised her glass of sweet tea. To Vivian Walters, who taught me that at 65 years old, you can still change everything with one phone call. Everyone raised their glasses. To Vivian, after dinner, after everyone had left, after I'd cleaned the dishes and put away the leftovers, I sat on my balcony with my phone and a cup of chamomile tea. At 9:47 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? Mrs. Walters? A woman's voice, shaking, desperate. My name is Crystal. I found your number through the DV Center. I heard about what you did, how you helped your daughter. She took a shaky breath. My boyfriend hit me tonight. I'm in my car. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I don't have anywhere to go. Can you help me? I sat up straight, looked at the time, 9:48 p.m., looked at my phone contacts, Sarah Mitchell, home number, looked at the address of the DV shelter I'd volunteered at for 6 months. Crystal, I said, my voice calm and steady. Where are you right now? Are you safe? I'm in a Kroger parking lot on Ponce de Leon. He doesn't know where I am. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to call someone, a detective I trust. Her name is Sarah Mitchell. She's going to send a police car to meet you. They're going to take you to a safe place, a shelter. They have beds, food, counselors. You'll be protected. I don't have any money. You don't need money. You just need to be safe. Can you stay in that parking lot for 10 minutes? Yes. Good. Stay on the line with me. I'm calling Sarah right now. I conference called Sarah, explained the situation. Sarah was already in her car within 3 minutes. Crystal, Sarah said, I'm Detective Sarah Mitchell. I'm 8 minutes from your location. Can you describe your car? While Sarah drove, I stayed on the phone with Crystal. What's your full name, sweetheart? Crystal Marie Johnson. I'm 28. I've been with him for 3 years. This isn't the first time he hit me. But tonight I just couldn't anymore. You don't have to anymore, I said. Tonight you choose differently. Tonight you survive. Are you sure they'll help me? I don't have identification. He took my license. He controls everything. They'll help you. I promise. I've been where you are. My daughter has been where you are. We survived. You will too. At 10:04 p.m., Sarah arrived. She stayed on the phone with us. Crystal, I see a blue Honda Civic. Is that you? Yes. I'm walking towards you now. You're safe. I heard Crystal crying. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Don't thank me, I said. Just promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll tell your story. When you're ready. When you're safe. Promise me you'll help the next woman who's scared and alone. Promise me you'll break the chain. I promise. I hung up at 10:07 p.m., sat on my balcony under the stars, thought about November 12th, 2023, the slap, the call, the choice. One phone call had saved Naomi, and tonight, one phone call might have saved Crystal. Tomorrow there might be another call, another woman, another chance to break the silence. I pulled out my journal, the one my therapist had suggested I start keeping, and I wrote, I'm Vivian Walters. I'm 66 years old. I'm a retired nurse, a mother, a grandmother, and a survivor. I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's picking up the phone when your hands are shaking. I learned that one moment can change everything. One decision, one call. I learned that silence protects abusers. But speaking saves lives. My daughter is free. My grandson is safe. And tonight, one more woman chose survival. The greatest victory wasn't revenge. It wasn't even justice. It was watching my daughter laugh again. Watching her choose herself. Watching her build a life where she's not afraid. That's the victory. I closed my journal. Tomorrow was Monday. I had my volunteer shift at the DV Center at 10 a.m. Naomi and I had lunch planned at 1 p.m. Elijah's school play was at 7 p.m. Normal days. Beautiful, ordinary, peaceful days. The kind of days that feel like miracles when you've lived through hell. I finished my tea, went inside, locked my door, not because I was afraid, but because safety is a choice I get to make now. And I slept through the night. No nightmares, no fear, just peace. 1 year later, Derek Thompson remains incarcerated at FCY Jessup. Projected release date, June 2036. Patricia Thompson remains incarcerated at FCY Alderson, West Virginia. Given her age, 75, and health issues, she may not survive her sentence. Naomi Walters completed her divorce in August 2024. She returned to her maiden name. She's been dating someone new, a gentleman named Marcus who makes her laugh, who's never raised his voice, who treats Elijah like a son. Elijah is 10 years old. He plays soccer. He makes straight A's. He tells me he wants to be a doctor when he grows up. To help people, Grandma, like you helped Mommy. I'm 67 years old now. I volunteer at the Atlanta DV Intervention Center 3 days a week. I've helped 47 women escape abusive situations. Sarah Mitchell was promoted to captain. She trains every new officer in domestic violence response protocols. She uses my case as an example. One call can save a life. Never dismiss a DV call. Never underestimate what's at stake. Amanda Peterson, Keisha Williams, and Jennifer Blake, Derek's previous victims, have formed a support group. They're writing a book about surviving abuse. They asked me to write the foreword. I said yes. The money Derek was ordered to pay me as restitution, I donated all $47,000 to the DV Center. They used it to expand their shelter by 8 beds. 8 more women can escape now because my daughter survived. That feels right. If you're reading this, if you're listening to this story, I want you to know. If you're being hurt, you're not alone. If you're afraid, there is help. If you think no one will believe you, I believe you. And if you're wondering whether to make that call, to the police, to a hotline, to someone you trust, make it. Make the call. It saved my daughter's life. It might save yours too. National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233, available 24/7. Confidential. Free. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are worth saving. I'm Vivian Walters. This is my story. This is my daughter's story. And we're still here, still standing, still surviving, still calling.